Tell me a little bit about, what it means to kind of come to Chicago here and, get to screen this film and, have that Q&A session afterwards.
Sometimes when you make smaller movies like this, they only get seen by, people in LA and New York. And I never wanted that. This is a movie that's about mainstream culture, and I wanted it to be a part of mainstream culture. So getting to, I was in Dallas yesterday, and today I'm in Chicago, and getting to, be at big movie theaters, multiplex movie theaters, and have, big audiences seeing the movie feels really great. That's what I always intended it to be.
Your character, obviously, he's a little bit of a dick.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that the Don Johns and these kind of average American guys that you were talking about last night, do you think when they were going to watch this movie, how do you think they're going to receive it? And is there going to be any kind of self-awareness, do you think?
I would think so, yeah. I think they're going to think it's really funny. I think that's what I think, and, I'm not above any of this stuff, I think pretty much everybody that I've talked to, all my buddies who have seen it, they can identify with this guy. He's an extreme version, and I'm certainly not him, but we all know what it's like to feel those feelings and be bombarded by images from throughout the media, whether it's a pornography video or a Victoria's Secret catalog or a Carl's Jr. commercial, and then have to be like, okay, well then how am I going to approach a love life with real live human beings when these images are constantly, coming at me? And so I think any guy will be able to relate.
The premise of this average American guy, what was it that really kind of drew you towards focusing on that type of a character versus any other character?
I think it's sort of about our culture in general, and it's a comedy. It is a little bit larger than life. I think it's more real than like a big yuck comedy, but it's more heightened than like a completely grounded drama. It's trying to find that sweet spot, like 50-50 or like 500 Days of Summer or like The Graduate or Shampoo, some of those classics. And I think, when you're trying to sort of talk about some questions like, okay, how is media really impacting our perception of things, our perception of gender roles or love or sex, I think the best way to approach those issues in a movie is to do it with a comedy, is to make people laugh, because I'm not an academic. I'm not trying to write an essay or have a thesis per se. There are great academic papers and studies written about this stuff, and that's not my area of expertise. I know how to bring an audience into a theater and make them have a good time. That's what I grew up doing, and that's what I wanted to do.
This film calls into question a lot of just cultural and societal habits, especially looking at kind of routine and how much like routine kind of defines our existence throughout the film. We kind of see, we see John going to church, going to the gym, and like it keeps recurring throughout the film. So what was it like to really kind of take an honest look at just how much routine is like defining, especially like being an American, what that means to us?
That's a really good question. And the movie is that way. It goes in cycles. And he has a very set routine. Me personally, I think that there's a lot of strength in having a routine, because then you get used to something and then you can get good at things. There's a lot of routine when it comes to making a movie. Everyone's got their roles that they play, whether it's the actors or the camera department or the art department or the costume department. Everybody sort of has their routines. And because of that, we can get so much done. But it's also worth questioning a routine and not just doing it because that's how we've always done it, but really making sure that every time we do it, should we still be doing it this way? Or is it worth thinking about, maybe we can stick to this part of the routine, but also change it up a little bit? And that's sort of what happens in Don John. He's got his routine that he just moves forward with unquestioningly at the beginning of the story. But by the end of the story, he's sort of starting to break out of his mold and be more curious and present with like, okay, why am I really doing this?
one of the scenes that really kind of stuck out to me, it was very short but so effective, was the scene where Bobby comes in to confront Don about, why is it like you've been acting like this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like those heart to heart between guys, sometimes it takes that breaking point, or it takes something really significant to open that up. So I mean, what does it mean to kind of have scenes like that in your film to kind of represent what it's like for guys trying to have those conversations?
I'm glad you bring that up, man. I really like that scene too. And Rob Brown, who plays Bobby in the movie, is a really good friend of mine, and I wrote the part with him in mind. We've done a couple movies together, and yeah, I think that's often the case for young men. Those are sometimes your closest confidants, is your buddies. That's who you're not going to talk to your family necessarily about what's really going on way down inside. And sometimes it's hard to even have that conversation with your buddies. And I think John, in general, doesn't. And that scene you're talking about takes place, maybe 2/3 of the way through the movie. And it is a big turning point where up until that point, he's just all bravado with his buddies. But I think Bobby's maybe a little more mature than John is. And he's like, all right, look, sit down. Let's have a real conversation. What's going on with you? And, I've had those conversations with friends of mine on both sides of the equation. And those are really important moments. It's, friends are underrated, I think.